Hello and welcome to the inaugural Paired Analytics Streaming Report Card report featuring myself, Wade Payson-Denney, PR and Communications Manager. Who are you?
I am Brandon Katz, Senior Entertainment Industry Strategist here at Parrot Analytics.
Right on. So every quarter, Brandon, myself, and our colleagues, Chris and Dan, put together this lovely document that basically summarizes the state of the industry as well as how each of the individual major platforms are doing both in terms of content demand and finances. So this quarter was seems like everyone is profitable right now, depending on how you define streaming. We had Paramount. We had Paramount likely to be acquired by David Ellison's Skydance Media after a basically year-long shopping campaign from Sherry Redstone. Brandon, what were your kind of main takeaways from the quarter?
We had a lot of streaming services claim profitability, but there was a lot of misleading numbers going on. I think what we're seeing is that the steady march towards real, true profitability is ongoing, and the economics of the streaming industry are improving. But we're still a long, long way away from replacing the financials of the pay TV model, which means there's not going to be as much money coming into all these legacy media companies as they are used to on their balance sheet. So it'll be a very interesting near and long-term future.
So other companies are kind of having to band together in order to compete with Netflix and frankly stay relevant and alive long term. So let's look at one of those initiatives right here. This is the Disney Hulu Max bundle that Warner Brothers Discovery and Disney are working on together. So we looked at basically the supply of the TV catalog for each of them, figuring out what overlap there might be. As you can see here, there is very little overlap between the platforms, suggesting this is a good initiative for retaining subscribers. But how will this actually help them, each of these platforms, scale up and compete better against Netflix?
It remains to be seen, Wade, because obviously there's a fair number of consumers out there that already subscribe to each service individually. So the amount of subscription growth and acceleration that such a bundle can generate remains to be seen. It's a bit up in the air. But here's why it's important, and here's why we're seeing a rebundling era where streaming services are joining forces. And it's because consumers really want two things. They want, price consciousness, and they want convenience. The idea behind these bundles is offering multiple services for a discounted price, similar to the pay TV ecosystem, and they all want it in the same billing. So it's not, oh, I've got multiple credit cards on file with multiple companies. That just gets confusing. Now, these bundles are a strong first step in consolidating the fragmented streaming ecosystem we find ourselves in, but there's still a lack of a universal interface. For this bundle, you still have to traverse between Disney Plus and Max. It's not all included in the same single app. Now, whoever's able to crack that code in the future and get a lot of different companies to agree to cooperate with one another, they're going to be able to dictate the terms of the next era of the streaming industry. But for now, this is a good step in the right direction for consumers gaining a little bit more control over what they watch and moving away from the a la carte era, which was the kind of definitive early streaming years, and more towards groupings of similar content.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of the, these are companies that are frankly being at the danger of being left behind by the decline of linear TV. Breaking news, everyone, I know. But yeah, so I wanted to also, I thought one of our better charts this quarter looked at how specifically different brands on Paramount Plus were doing, because when David Ellison, assuming everything goes through, takes over probably first half of next year, he's going to have a lot of decisions to make as far as what to do with all these linear assets that have been in decline for a number of years by now. So we looked at how these different brands are performing when it comes to supply versus demand. So basically assessing the ROI of these companies. So the three that actually over-indexed were Nickelodeon, CBS to a massive extent, and then actually Paramount Plus, which has a really devoted fan base, specifically with Star Trek shows and the Taylor Sheridan universe. So, Brandon, if you were David Ellison with, all of that goes with, what would you do with Paramount Plus and the different linear assets that he's going to take over?
Well, first of all, Wade, if I was David Ellison, I would immediately retire and I'd be on a beach sipping a very unique cocktail and riding a golden jet ski. Alas, I am not David Ellison and I do not have those billions. So if I'm sticking with the ambitions at hand, I am certainly really focusing on Nickelodeon, CBS as my key brands. CBS sitcoms and procedurals remain some of the most popular programming both in the US and worldwide, off both on Paramount Plus and as key revenue generating licensed titles elsewhere. Also, of course, CBS is home to the NFL and a lot of other sports. I would really reorient my linear experience around those sports and really double down on those procedurals and sitcoms as a licensing tool to generate additional revenue and create long libraries for retention on streaming. I would definitely invest more in Nickelodeon. Kids brands are the foundations to the most revenue generating, highest grossing multimedia franchise in the world. So I continue to build that out. Nickelodeon is doing so with continued experimentation in the SpongeBob franchise. And they also have a lot more entries in the animated Avatar universe coming up, which as a nerd, I'm very excited for. So that's really what I kind of double down on and focus. But I have a question for you. It's a bit more macro, Wade. The Skydance merger won't be officially approved for about another year, which leaves Paramount Global and Paramount Plus in particular in a bit of a neutral holding pattern. Do you see any similarities between this and the delay that AT&T was forced to endure in acquiring Time Warner, which really messed up their streaming strategy and prevented the launch of then HBO Max by about a year and a half? So do you see any trouble resulting from this kind of neutral holding pattern that Paramount's in, or do you think because they have a foundation already set up, they're not in as much trouble?
I think Paramount Plus will be less impacted than HBO Max was by that delay. I mean, that the AT&T Time Warner deal that was announced in October of 2016. It was delayed. It didn't go through until about June of 2018. So that was nearly 2 years that those executives couldn't even talk when it came to coming up with a streaming strategy. And HBO Max did come out, I believe, around 6 months after Apple TV Plus and Disney Plus launched. It was, if you remember, I mean, people, it has a devoted fan base now, but when that app launched, it was a complete disaster and people were not on board. But
I was one
Paramount
of
Plus
retweeters every time my screen froze on an episode of Love Life or a repeat of Game of Thrones. So you can count me among them, even though I love the service now.
Yeah, no, they've done a good job, obviously, since then. But it was not a good start, and that was largely due to the fact that it was being held up in regulations. With Paramount Plus, I think that they have a subscriber base of 70 million. That's up from 16 million 3 years ago. Really good growth. They have original brands. I mean, all the Star Trek stuff, all the Taylor Sheridan shows are doing super well. They have access to the NFL. They have one of the top 2 NFL packages which is by default one of the top 2 most valuable media packages in the United States. So I think they're in a position to do well. What I don't know is whether Ellison will want to basically go it alone with Paramount Plus. Will they join another bundle? They're the odd man out when it comes to the bundles. You have Disney, Max, and Hulu on one side. You have Apple TV Plus, Peacock, and Netflix on the other. Paramount Plus is left out. All right, we're not going to bore you with the entire slide deck, but if you want it, hit us up on LinkedIn, and we'll see you next time.